so much for joining us today. You might have seen some little biscuits, so feel free to have those. I'll tell you about those in a minute. But welcome to the live recording of the Start, Scale, Succeed podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Higgins. And if you've never come across a podcast before, it's aimed at product businesses. And in it, I chat with entrepreneurs and experts that help you with tips and advice to start and grow your product businesses. And today I am joined by Martha Keith, the founder of Martha Brooke Stationery, and also the founder of the Business Secrets Club, which has grown from 0 to 60,000 followers in 5 months. And Martha's stationery brand has over 120,000 followers. So Martha is very well placed to talk to us about Instagram today. Martha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you are very passionate about Instagram and what it can do for brands and businesses. Explain a little bit why.
I am slightly obsessed with Instagram, really pretty much because I kind of own my 2 businesses to it. So when I first started my product business, my stationery business, many moons ago, Instagram was the thing that really allowed me to get the brand out there, and it's grown from there really. And I thought I'd try this year to apply what I know and see whether I could grow an account from scratch. And as you say, I started Business Secrets Club. This is kind of me officially announcing that I'm doing it in a way. And it's really grown from the start of the year. And I'm really passionate about it because I think it's still, I know people moan a lot about Instagram, but I really think it's still the best place to build a community for your brand, and really, I think, is the best place for selling. We're going to get more into it in this talk, and hopefully you can take a few hints and tips away. But I really think hopefully, I'm sure lots of you here run a brand yourself, it's one of the best time investments you can make when you think about marketing, because it doesn't cost anything, and you really can reach a large amount of people and grow a genuine community for your own business.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about growing social media to increase your sales, connecting with your community and your customer. And so, Martha, kind of first off and straight into it, what are your top tips for how brands can connect more with their community so that then can result in sales as well?
Gosh, it's a big question. I guess probably like a lot of you start an Instagram account probably because you want to sell something. Maybe I'm guessing a lot of people here run retail businesses. And I think you come from a point of, hey, this is my product, I want to talk about my product. And I think the first thing, if you really want to use Instagram for your business, is to get in the mindset of that nobody logs on Instagram to be sold to. Like, we don't, do we? People come on Instagram to have connection, to meet people, to feel something, to be inspired, to be entertained. So I think it's really helpful to think about your content as a brand in 3 buckets. The growth content, which is the really interesting, valuable stuff that's going to allow you to grow your community and more people to come and find you. The nurture content, which is basically people kind of getting to know you and your brand on a deeper level, forming a deeper connection with the people that are already following you. And then the sales content, which is going to allow you to sell your product. And Instagram is a brilliant platform for selling, but you kind of need to do those other 2 things too. And I think people fall out of love with Instagram when they're coming too much from their own mindset of, I'm here to sell something. And I think as soon as you reframe it that I'm here to build a community, I'm here to add some sort of value, some sort of reason for people to come and follow, it starts to flow a bit more. So my biggest tip is to really, and I know we're going to talk about this a bit more because I think it's really game-changing when you get your head around it, to think about actually why would people follow me? And then secondly, to remind yourself that a little bit like if you're walking past here and you're hearing something of value, you might stop and watch. And then if we have a chat afterwards, that's the nurture stuff where you're going to get to know me a bit more. And that's kind of how Instagram works.
It's kind of what Instagram works. And it's kind of bringing people in, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sharing more. And, I follow your Instagram account, the Business Secrets Club, and you've talked a little about on that channel about creating bingeable content that people come back to and, wait for the next installment. What does that look like? Can you give some examples of what that could be?
Yeah, I think a lot of us spend as long on social media now than we do on TV. I don't know about you, but you get in the evening, you're like, too tired to watch the episode, I'll just scroll. I don't know whether, and then you're like, I've spent half an hour scrolling, I could have watched that episode in the first place. So I think it's really interesting to kind of think about your own social channels a little bit like a TV show. And you really want people to want to come and watch your show. And if you think about all the things that make a good TV show watchable, they've got characters that you care about, right? and you need to kind of be that character, the person. You're going to take somebody on a journey. You want to have story strands, so people want to check back in and find out what you're doing. So it might be a product you tell people you're developing, and people want to check back in and find out how you're getting on with that. Or it might be, I'm renovating my studio or something. People are like, oh, I wonder how she's getting on. And then and then actually you want to repeat stuff. So like all the best TV shows, they have something where it feels familiar and like it feels comforting. I don't know whether anybody has seen that guy on TikTok and Instagram. He starts every single one of his videos with the cucumber guy. Has anyone seen this? Like every single one of his videos, he's like, it's something like, oh, I really fancy cucumber, or how I'm going to make a cucumber. Something to do with cucumbers. Every single one of his videos is the same sentence he starts, every single one. And I swear he's built up over the last year 5 million followers. Every single video starts the same way, with him being like, I'm going to make something out of a cucumber. And it's him holding a cucumber. But every time it's slightly different. But it's really like, it's the repetition of it that has made him successful. So you almost need to find what is your thing, what is the identifiable thing, and then just come back to it time and time again. People love repetition. It's comforting. And that can be the way that people get to know you. It's almost like, Friends, it's like the one where. It's like, what's the thing that's yours? What's the thing that's your account? What's the thing you're going to keep repeating that people will keep coming back and watching? And that's what makes it bingeable.
And we hear a lot about adding value, for your customer. What can that look like?
Yeah, you hear somebody like me going, add value, and you're like, but I'm just here to sell my product. And I think that can feel really, really overwhelming. But when it boils down, basically value is either something that's entertaining in some way, it's satisfying, it's interesting to watch, it's educational in some way, or it is inspiring. And you kind of need to find out what the value looks like for your people and for your products and for your niche. So just to give you a tangible example, because I know you hear people saying that and you're like, what does that mean? So for my stationery business, one of the things that I've identified as a real value point is us showing how our products are made. We manufacture ourselves, we manufacture in the UK, and I show video content of us making our products. And that is value because it's entertainment, because it's satisfying to watch. We had a reel in January where I gained 9,000 followers from one reel showing me making a product. So, that is interesting to people. People love to see the behind the scenes. And then the other thing that is value for me, so our business is all about productivity and self-care. So we have a lot of self-kindness content, and a lot of that is quite shareable, quite savable, and that's one of the things that people come back to. And the third thing that I've identified as real value content for me is the kind of connection bucket is the personal branding side of things, talking about the journey of being on a small business, talking about the story. And actually people love that. People love being taken on the journey. So it's trying to find the things for your brand and for your niche that people will find interesting and useful. And sometimes you can start out and not know what those things are. But when you start to notice the things that get people to follow you, then you can think, all right, I might build on that. How can I make that a bit better? And you never get it first time, but it's by building on something that eventually you find the thing that kind of cracks it. I know Laura's in the audience here from Mouse and Meg, and she had an amazing reel which she did as part of one of my Reels challenges, where she talked about her journey starting her business. And it was really inspiring. She used storytelling really, really well. And I know she gained quite a few followers from that, a few thousand followers. And it's just finding that thing that connects with people, that it's not just you going, hey, buy my product. It's the storytelling, it's the interesting stuff, it's the stuff that's going to make people feel something.
And we hear about storytelling a lot. For people that don't know where to start with that story, what would be your words of advice for that?
So I think you need to kind of go back to why you started your business in the first place, and work out how you can kind of tell that in a coherent way. And you can try it in a few different ways and kind of work out what fits. But storytelling is, it's essentially something that makes you feel something. It's something that emotes. So you find out your why for your business, maybe find out a few things that are unique about you and why you do what you do, and kind of come back to them and tell them in different ways. Instead of saying, oh, here's this great product, buy it. Talk about why you made that product. Talk about how you created it. Talk about the journey you've been on. People don't want to see nowadays the final product. They want to know what's behind it. They want to know why you're doing what you're doing. Constantly come back to the why, and I think that really, really helps you think about what a story can look like.
And just kind of a show of hands, how many people have new businesses or have been business how many people kind of 1 to 3 years in their business or like 3 years plus? And how are people feeling kind of, you feeling stuck? Hands up first, people who are feeling a bit stuck on Instagram or feel like they know what they're doing or no? Okay. What I want to kind of ask Martha about is, and it's something that's often talked about, and sometimes you go, content what? How do I figure this out? Are content pillars. And it's a number of content, it's a phrase that's bandied about quite a lot. For people to understand what their content pillars are for their business, what should they be doing?
I know it's really scary when you hear that phrase. First of all, you're like, what does that mean? So I like to think about them, anyone who follows me will know this, as buckets. So I like to think of them as kind of, basically they're themes for your content. So if you kind of imagine that for your account, any account, you should have about 3 to 4 buckets. And they're sort of rough umbrella themes that you put everything that you talk about in. And they're useful because instead of going, right, I need to sell my products, it helps you reframe of, actually, these are the things that I'm going to talk about. And it helps you add value, and it helps people know what your account is about, so they kind of know why they should follow you. So just to give maybe an example, just to help this. So say, I've used this example before, but say you sold children's craft kits. Instead of thinking, oh, I need to just kind of come and sell my children's craft kits. If you kind of go back to, what's my business about? What's my values? Why have I started this business? You know, your buckets could be something about innovation because you really want to evolve. You really want to have cutting edge products and really different products to what's on the market. You might have a bucket around family because that's super important to your brand because obviously you're selling things aimed at children. And then you might have another bucket which is around crafting because you want to inspire and encourage crafting. Now, of course, your product's going to fit into that, but there might be some other stuff that fit really nicely into that. Your behind-the-scenes story as a business, you as a mother, you might have some stuff around DIY stuff and do-it-yourself crafts. So there might be some other things that fit into those buckets that really add value to your audience and really add value to the people you want to follow you, but they're not just you saying, hey, buy my product, but you can use your product to talk about those things. Does that make sense? And I would follow that account because I've got 2 young children, and I'm constantly thinking, oh, how am I going to entertain my 6-year-old? That's immediately an account I'd follow instead of an account where they're saying, hey, buy my stuff all the time. Do you see what I mean? So buckets, content buckets or content pillars, they just help you think about your account in a slightly different way. And also once you've really got them clear in your head, they really stop you from thinking, oh, what am I going to post today? Because you kind of have an endless thing.
Or repeating the same thing
exactly.
all the time. And it's often a phrase I hear, oh, I don't want to sell, I feel too salesy. What content have you seen, either from your own account or from you heard from people that follow you, that has been able to generate those sales without being salesy?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because I say, don't rock up and sell. And you're like, but I want to sell. So I think when we think about selling, we kind of think about probably hard selling. So saying, oh, hey, this is my product, buy it. And actually, you're probably going to not do that all the time on social media because actually that's not that interesting to people. And that's the sort of stuff that people don't engage with. Your engagement goes down and then people don't see your content. And you end up in what I call the Instagram cycle of doom. We've all been in it. Where you're posting and no one's engaging. And then it just gets worse and worse. And you can't get out of it. So I really am a big fan of something I call soft selling. So this can be a few different things. So one example is social proof. So none of us really know what we want to buy. We just buy what everybody else buys. This is a true fact. You see other people buying stuff and you're like, oh my God, I really want to buy that thing. So that could be, if you're a physical product business, seeing orders piled up. That's really interesting. You're like, oh, why is everyone buying that product? Could be seeing orders going out the door. Could be seeing evidence of orders being placed. It could be seeing reviews from happy customers. It could be user-generated content, somebody else using the product. You're like, oh, that's really interesting. So social proof is a really big thing for soft selling. It doesn't feel like you're selling, but it really is. Demonstrating your product, so showing how it's used in real life, showing it in context, showing how you make it. All of those things really sell your product because they're showing somebody the value and care that goes into it, but they're not you saying, buy my product. Of course, you're going to say, buy my product every now and again, but you're just not going to do that every single time you show your product. So I kind of think on the grid, so on the feed, what you want to do is really mix soft selling in with that really valuable content. And then you're going to put your hard sell, your buy this now, sign up to my newsletter, come here, sale, whatever. All of that stuff's on stories. And those people are much more closer to you, much further down the marketing funnel.
It's much warmer, the
It's
people that are
much
in your
warmer,
stories.
exactly. You've got to think about your marketing funnel. People never really buy something when they see it first time. Of course, there are exceptions to that. I had a reel on my product business, which went off like 4.5 million followers about a refillable notepad. It's like a notepad, right? And actually, we got sales from that, but not as many as you would expect because people are kind of seeing it cold. But we get, as many sales when I'm talking about something on stories, when you get those people, they're warm, they kind of have been with you a while.
There's more trust there, they like you, they know what to expect.
So I think you of course, you're going to do the hard selling, but I think mixing in what works for you with the soft stuff and kind of getting used to doing that kind of all the time, but in a way that is interesting, and that is much more powerful for social media.
And what about if you're in a rut and you are feeling a bit stuck in your Instagram and you feel that you're in that cycle of doom? What's a way to kind of, what's the word? What do you do to a car? Jumpstart. Jumpstart. That's right. How can you jumpstart it to kind of get it going again?
Oh my God, we've all been there, right? So I think one thing I would say is if you're finding it difficult and you're getting really low engagement, is to just not keep doing the same thing, because people aren't going to suddenly just be like, 1,000 likes. If you're getting 10 likes, it's not going to suddenly just be 1,000 likes. I really would stop and take a step back and really have a think. Because the problem with Instagram, I don't know whether you know this, but the way the algorithm works is that it serves your content to an average of your previous engagement. So if you're constantly getting low engagement, it's really actually genuinely quite hard to break out of that. I know we've all been there. Because it's what happens is Instagram only shows your content. It shows your content to like less and less people.
Yeah.
So what you really need to do is take a step back and think, okay, what are people actually going to interact with? And it might be different to what I want to post. I might want to sell my print today. I might want to sell my notebook. But actually, I need to get people seeing my stuff before I kind of have permission to pitch to them, to sell to them. So really take a step back and think, okay, what is going to get somebody interacting with my content in some way? So what the algorithm's looking for is for people to watch it to the end, for people to press the like button, for people to comment, for people to save it. And really think about how you can mix that content in to start to get those views creeping up. Because I know, and we all know it, there's nothing more demoralizing than putting all your time into it and people not seeing your content. It's hard work, right? It takes time. So really taking a step back, and if you're struggling, I would always go back to your why, always go back to your story, because that is always interesting to people. People love to know why you're doing what you're doing. And I think you might think, I've told this story before, but sometimes it's the third time you tell the story that it takes off, and it's the third time that people engage. So don't be afraid to repeat yourself, and don't be afraid to come back to something where it feels more emotive and it feels more genuine.
And what about reaching non-followers then? So say your account is ticking along, it's growing steadily, but you're not really, it's being seen by the same people all the time, you're not really growing. What about reaching non-followers on posts and reels? So, I know this is going to sound really weird, but if you want to reach non-followers, you almost need to talk to non-followers. So if I go back to that reel that I posted in January, so the one I told you that we gained like 9,000 followers. The refill notebook.
No, this is a different one. So this is in January. It was just a general behind the scenes of my stationery business. Genuinely 9,000 followers. I think it might even be close to 10,000 now. So instead of saying, which I would do if I was just posting to my followers, oh, hey, we're back in the studio, or here's a bit behind the scenes of Martha Britt this week. That is never going to do well with non-followers because those people don't know you, right? Mm-hmm. So if they see something with your product name in, or they see something like, oh, hey, here's what we got up to this week, there's no context to that. So if you want to reach non-followers and you want your content to do well for non-followers, you need to imagine that they're seeing you for the first time. They've got no context about who you are, and you need to talk to them. So instead of saying, oh, hey, this is what we're back in the studio, the hook for that reel was when it's the first week of January, but you're really excited because you run a stationery business. Now that makes sense to anybody. You could not know anything about me. You could not know anything about my business. And that tells you something's about to happen in this reel that's made this person excited. I know that they're a stationery business. And it's relevant.
I'm going to hang around for more.
And so it's told you everything you need to know in that first bit of the reel, and it works for non-followers. And therefore, people hung around and watched it. And I think that reel got maybe like 500,000 views, but 9,000 followers. So if you want to reach non-followers, you almost need to make sure that the wording of it works if somebody doesn't know you. And think about, again, back to that value thing, what am I giving them that's going to make them want to follow? And of course, my products were all the way through that reel. I tagged them, I mentioned them in the caption. But, I wasn't hard selling there. I was aiming that at, kind of getting engagement and kind of getting the account going again after the Christmas break.
And something I see you personally doing on the Business Secrets Club account is always showing up in your comments first with a comment on the post you've just posted. Is that a knack? Is that a trick? Is that purposeful? We all want engagement, right? We all want someone to comment. It's so nice when someone comments. And if you want people to comment, you've got to chat too. You've got to comment. You've got to ask questions. No one wants to rock up and be the first to comment on something. If you want a conversation, you've got to start a conversation. Yeah. You always seem to start the conversation.
Oh, I love it. So you've got to say something in your own comments that maybe ask a question, so people are going to want to come and reply to your question, or ask people something, or say something that maybe will stimulate a debate or a conversation. I know that's quite hard to do, and you feel super cringe, like I'm commenting on my post, no one else has commented. No one's even liked my post yet. Like it yourself, comment yourself, and it gets it going.
Yeah.
It genuinely does make a difference. The algorithm knows whether you're a bot or not. It really does. So if you're on your own post, if you're commenting, if you're liking, if you're replying to people, it just gets it going a bit. So I always recommend with any content you post to do that. And of course, at the start, it feels super cringe. But as people get used to you doing it, people get used to commenting, go and comment on other people's posts, they'll come and comment back. If you want it to be a conversation, you've got to start the conversation yourself.
And what about, you hear about people that before you post, engaging before and after on Instagram itself. Would you agree with that as well?
There's this thing that kind of goes around at the moment where people say you've got to engage in your niche. And I don't agree with that necessarily. So, it's slightly controversial, but for my stationery business, I don't follow any other stationery accounts because I find it really distracting. So I don't think you don't need to be engaged in your niche to be seen in that niche. So I've said this before, but I will watch a whole load of Taylor Swift videos. Doesn't mean that my videos are going to get shown to Taylor Swift fans. Mm-hmm. Or I literally, at the moment, my feed is like load of mum content, but I'm not going to get shown to mum. So don't worry about what you engage with per se, but engaging with other people, of course, it means that they're going to come and engage back. Chatting to people, they're more likely to come and chat back. I think just being active on the app, like having a routine where you log on and you talk to people, is good for you, and it's good just generally for the engagement on your account. If you want people to engage, you've got to engage yourself.
And what are your top tips on grabbing people's attention in those hooks, whether they're the visual hooks or the written hooks in the post itself?
So people are talking about hooks all the time. You're like, oh my God, not hooks again. but for reels in particular, people scroll so fast. And you just have that first 1, 2, max 3 seconds to grab someone. So if you really want those reels to get pushed out, you have to think about that first bit of your video more than anything. I always start with any bit of content with the hook. What is the hook? What is the message I'm giving? What is the thing that's going to make somebody come and watch? And a hook is 3 parts. It's the video, it's what you're showing on the screen, it's the words you're putting on the screen, and it's that start of your caption. So I would always put the most interesting bit of your video first, even if it's like in the middle of the process. Like, what's the thing that's going to make somebody go, oh, what's that? What's the words you're using that's going to make somebody go, oh, what's this? So thinking about that first 3 seconds of your video is really important. And you want everything somebody needs to know to happen in that first 3 seconds. So, it used to be that you could have something like, I couldn't believe it when, ... But that's not enough, because that's not telling everybody everything they need to know in the first 3 seconds. You need to tell people what's happening, what's the whole story, so they'll stop, and then you can add extra context and extra information. So it used to be you'd be like, oh, a bit of a tease, main points, final bits. No, you need to wham it all in that first 3 seconds. If you scroll through the Reels tab and look at the stuff that's doing well, you'll see that everything happens at the start. And as soon as you you work that out for your content, it really makes an enormous difference. I would genuinely say that the hook is 50% of the success of any reel. Those first 2 seconds, just 2-3 seconds. You can try, if you think you've got a great bit of content, try it again, but change the beginning. And I've done this myself, and you'll be amazed the difference it can make. So have a look at kind of the sort of stuff that's working for other people and just try it for your own content. It really, really does work.
And you mentioned earlier about how you use stories slightly differently to how you use your main feed. How can people use stories differently on Instagram?
I love Instagram stories. Maybe controversial, but I think that, so I talked a bit earlier about Instagram being like a marketing funnel. So stories are only the people that follow you. They're the lovely people, the people that already know you. And they're such a great opportunity to form a deeper connection with people. And ultimately, they are the best place for selling because those people know you. They know what you're about. So they're really, really valuable. And I know they sometimes feel like an afterthought. By the way, if you want to do stories next week, I've got Instagram Story Week happening. I'll give you a little tip every day, free prompt, come and follow. We'll talk about that at the end. But so I think about Instagram stories in 4 buckets. So you really want to get the views up as high as you can, right? So there is an algorithm for Instagram stories. There's an algorithm for reels. There's an algorithm for posts. Stories have their own algorithm. And how many people watch your story is based on the story algorithm. So you can really get those views up. So the first way you want to think about this is like your engagement boosters. So the things that are going to encourage people to interact in some way that's going to push your story up the ranking and get it to the top of someone's home feed. You want to add a bit of value. So you want to kind of show somebody something or do something interesting that's going to keep people wanting to watch. And then you want to just do the mundane stuff, the personal stuff. Do the most interesting things on Instagram stories. Just literally what coffee you had, or my car's broken down, or problem with my child. It's something really mundane. People love the relatable stuff that shows you're a human. It can be literally anything. Anything that's kind of fits with your business, of course. And then lastly, sell. Don't forget the selling bit. You must sell. Maybe not every day, but if you fit that at the end of a story where you've added a bit of value, you've done some relatable stuff, then you absolutely can do that every day if you wanted to. But kind of thinking about stories in those 4 buckets, I think genuinely makes a difference. But if that feels too much, just thinking about how can I get people to know me a bit better? Pretend you're talking to a friend. How can I just tell people a bit more about me, show people a bit more about my day? Think about the word story. You're essentially taking people on a story of your business, a story of your day. And I think that really, really helps. And then think about how you can use them to take people on a bit of a journey and tell them the why, so that people kind of want to buy from you. And if you want to try some new things, I've got a really fun week next week where I'm going to be encouraging people to try something new every week.
And we'll show how to connect with both of us later. I've got one question about personal brand, and then we've had some questions that have been emailed through, and we've also got time for some Q&A as well. So have a think about what questions you would like to ask Martha. But in terms of building a personal brand on Instagram and showing up and being visible, and maybe if we can talk a little bit about how you can be visible. And I know for some people you might feel that is really difficult, but it is very important to build your personal brand. But so, Martha, building your personal brand on Instagram, how important is it with to connect with your consumers?
I honestly think personal branding is the biggest thing you can do right now. There's all this, and you've probably seen it, all this stuff on Instagram about anonymous accounts, faceless accounts. I really, really am not into that. You are your brand's secret weapon. One of the things you want to try and do with your brand is stand out. A lot of people are selling similar things, but there is no other you. You are the best thing that you can do for your business. And personal branding, if you think about what branding is essentially somebody's gut feeling about a business. It's not the logo, it's not the fonts. Of course, that's all part of a brand. But ultimately, the brands that you buy from regularly, you have a gut feeling about, right? You might go to John Lewis because you trust them. Or you might walk into Oliver Bonus because it feels creative and it makes you feel cool. Maybe that's just me. You have a gut feeling about a brand, and that's based on its branding. That is what the brand is. Personal branding is people having a gut feeling about you, which then helps your brand be a success. So I think people get a bit confused because they think personal branding is me talking on stories every day, and that's really not what it is. It's just people having a sense of why you're there and why you're doing what you're doing. So they form a bit of a connection with you, which helps them form a connection with your business. Does that make sense? And I think one of the reasons that both of my businesses have done well on Instagram is because I really use personal branding. I'm not afraid to talk about why I do what I do. I'm not afraid to talk about who I am. I'm not afraid to show myself every now and again. But you can do personal branding without showing yourself all the time. We'll talk about that. But essentially, what personal branding allows you to do is get that connection bit with your customer much faster, allows them to trust you much quicker. People are much more likely to buy from you if you know somebody and you trust them, and people buy from people, right? That is true. People do. So personal branding is a tool that you can use, and it's a really, really powerful one. There's a business with a face behind it. Like, it just allows you to have that bit more connection. It allows you just to take somebody down that marketing funnel much, much quicker. And ultimately, it allows your business to stand out because there's nobody else. There is no other you. You are your brand secret weapon, and I'm really, really passionate about that.
And then for people who don't feel comfortable being as confident and comfortable being as visible in their brand, how can they bring personal brand in without showing their face as much?
Yeah, and to do personal branding, you literally don't need to show yourself every day. That's not what I'm saying. So I think you do need to be a little bit visible, or at least people need to be able to see you a bit. So what that could mean is you might have a friend take a few pictures of you on a day you feel okay. You might do a video of you in the background, and you might just use those things every now and again just so people know who you are. But then you can still talk about stories without showing your face, a little bit about stuff, so people can just feel like, just get to know you a bit, or feel a bit more connection with you. I think one of the things I would say, and we talked about this a bit this year, one of the things I've been on a journey with this myself, right? I started this new account, Business Secrets Club, without telling any of my friends or family I was doing it, without telling anyone I know, because I was like, what are people going to think of me? And one thing that is 100% true is that with competence comes confidence. So the more you do something, and the more you know about it, like, the more confident you feel in yourself. So the first time you do something, it feels terribly, terribly scary. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I think some people say, I don't feel picture worthy, or I don't think that people are going to want to see me, or I don't really feel like I want to put myself on camera. And I completely get that. But you don't have to show yourself all the time. And even just showing a bit of yourself can really, really make a difference, because people will get to know you, and it makes people care. And ultimately, that's what you want if you really want people to come and buy from your business.
100%. And we're going to take some questions from the floor in a minute, but just to let you know where you can connect both with Martha and myself, you can find me on Instagram, The Buy and Retail Coach. The podcast is Start, Scale, Succeed. And if you've had a cookie, or if you've not had a cookie, please take one. There's the QR code is on the back that you can scan, or you can scan it on the screen here. And Martha?
Oh, yes. So you can come. So my stationery business is Martha Brooke, and my brand new business is Business Secrets Club, which we've got a free, I've got a free Instagram story guide, free Instagram story week coming next week, and I've got a brilliant guide, and I've got loads of tips and ideas. So come follow. If you sign up to my newsletter, you'll get some freebies straight away, and you'll see loads of great stuff coming up over the next few weeks. Kind of been keeping this as a secret, but I'm really proud of the amazing community. I think there's some people in the audience, honestly, genuinely the loveliest group of business people, really supportive, and lots more to come. So really excited.
And one of the questions that we had emailed through was, how do I say the same thing over and over again without boring people?
I know we all think that, don't we? Think, I talked about this last week. First thing I would say is that most people do not see all of your content. I think there's been an estimation that you see about 10% of someone's content, even if you really actively follow them. So don't be afraid to mention something again. Of course, you can put a different spin of it, but it may feel really super boring to you. I was talking to Nicole about this earlier, and I said, I feel like I've mentioned my new Instagram guide loads, and I haven't even finished it yet. And she's like, but it's not loads. It's loads to you because you've been thinking about it every day for the last 2 months, but it's not loads to everybody else. So you need to mention something a lot more times than you realise. I mean, we've got a stationery advent calendar, which in my stationery business that I'm going to be unveiling this year's edition on Thursday. But last year, I'm not joking, I talked about it every day for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I thought people are going to be so bored of this. We sold out. Somebody messaged me saying, I completely missed this. I can't believe it. This is terrible. And I felt like saying, where have you been? So I think it feels a lot to you, but don't be afraid to repeat yourself. As I said before, repetition is so good. Now, of course, you're not going to say every day, hey, sign up to my newsletter for this freebie in exactly the same way every day. You'll put a slightly different spin on it. But don't be afraid to repeat yourself. You'll get new people passing by. People don't see everything. Just say it slightly differently. I have had... I sometimes say the same thing, but said in a different way. And you'll be amazed at how sometimes it's the second, third, fourth time you say something that people kind of go, I get it. That's really interesting, and it does well.
And it clicks.
So don't be afraid to repeat yourself. Of course, you need to think about how you word it. But honestly, people will not have seen everything that you say.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Martha.
No worries.
So questions from the floor about growing your brand, Instagram, social media? That's very handy. You're right beside the mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How do you feel? I've got 2 kids as well, and how do you feel about sharing them? They're obviously a massive part of my journey and being a mum, and I like to share that, but I feel iffy about their faces being on there, and it's also quite weird when people put emojis over their kids' faces. It's a bit, I don't know, what's your take on that?
I can completely relate to this question because my children are a huge part of my story. So 7 rounds of IVF, and I'm really, really grateful to have 2 little girls, and it's been a real journey for me. And I used to show my 6-year-old when she was very little, and I don't show her face anymore. When my second daughter, who was born after a very, very long kind of process, a very difficult few years, I kind of showed her as a baby because I talked about it so much, but as she gets older, she's like 1 now. I think she still looks like a baby. She's not really identifiable, but I will stop showing her soon. I show the back of their heads. I talk about them. I talk about being a mum. It's a really big part of who I am. My fertility journey, it's been 9 years. It's been a really, really big part of who I am. But I don't think you need to show their faces to get across that you are a mum or you are a parent. I think if you are a parent and that's important, or you run a family business, or you sell products for children, absolutely talk about that you're a parent. It's ultimately up to you. It's your own decision. It's what you feel comfortable with. I think that my children deserve digital privacy, and now they're identifiable. I've made a personal decision to not show their faces, but that's just my personal decision. I don't judge anybody that does, but...
and you can bring them into the content in terms of your story. My daughter or my son loved X, Y, Z. What's your business? Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of what you feel comfortable with. I think I don't personally agree with using your children to sell some. Do you see what I mean?
Unless you're a kids' clothing brand.
I'm never going to become. Actually, it's interesting because I used to talk about my children a lot more on my personal account, and then I was telling these guys earlier I had a video 12.5 million views on my personal page where I was talking about something I did with my then 4-year-old, and it just really put me off because the comments were so weird. I wasn't even showing her face. And I think, you never really know who's out there, do you? People, it was just weird. Honestly, it was a really lovely video about, it was nothing showing her face. It was New Year's Eve, and we celebrated New Year's Eve at 8 p.m. so we could do it as a family. And I'm not joking. I had about 1,000 comments from people saying I was a terrible parent for gaslighting my children and lying to them. Or my children are thick, so they can't tell the time. And
just lots of random,
so
random
weird.
queries.
So I don't know, just put me off anything sort of parent content. I was just I'm not going to do that anymore. So I think it's ultimately what you're comfortable with, and I think you can still have, being a parent as a value. You can still have that as a theme you talk about without necessarily showing your children's faces. And there's ways you can do that, showing their hands, showing the back of their head, talk about what you're doing with them that day. And I think parents will still connect with that without you showing them if you don't want to.
Any other questions over there? You're all sitting very close to the mic. You're all making it very convenient. Yeah, she is.
So my question is about hashtags, because is that, do you do the 30? Is it even 30 anymore? Is that sort of a big part? And I don't even know with Reels if you can do hashtags. And what's
Oh my God, such a good question. So hashtags used to be the thing. Hashtags were the way people found your content. If you go back 5 years ago, it was all about hashtags. And you can use up to 30 still, but the advice on hashtags has changed so much. Instagram has essentially become a search platform, and people now find content through searching. So they go onto the explore page and they search for stuff. So now Instagram is about SEO. And hashtags actually don't really matter for reach in the same way that they used to. So you kind of need to think about hashtags as part of your overall SEO strategy. So the advice from Instagram, and I'll tell you whether I agree with this or not, but the advice from Instagram is now to use 3 to 5 very specific hashtags, put them in your caption, and think about them as part of your SEO. That's the advice from Instagram. I kind of experiment with this because I've always used like 15 hashtags and put them in my comments, and they still work as a hashtag, but because Instagram has changed so much, essentially, right, I'm going to give you an example. So say I want to sell a notebook. If somebody goes onto the Explore page and search for personalised notebook, which is what I sell, the number of times if you mention personalised notebook in your caption, you have a hashtag personalised notebook in your caption, that will act as SEO in the same way that it would on Google if you were going to have your page and you're search optimizing for personalised notebook. So that's kind of how you really need to think about hashtags now. Definitely don't use 30. Be more intentional with them. And if you want them to count for your SEO, they need to be in your caption, not your comments. But if you want to just have a general hashtag like you're joining in a challenge, or you want people to find it, if they're looking in that hashtag, you can still put it in your comment. But I'm changing my view on this in that you just need to be a bit more intentional with them and kind of think about them as part of your overall search strategy. I do slightly disagree with this because I've tested this and I'm still convinced that if you use more, you get more reach. But that's not what they say, so I'll just go with the party line on it. But I think I'm constantly experimenting. Hashtags are not the same as they were. It's really important you get your head around SEO for whatever post you're posting. What's really interesting about SEO on Instagram is that you can search for something. If you search for personalised notebook, you can find one of my bits of content from 2-3 years ago, like really close to the top. So SEO actually makes your content work much longer. A little bit like on Google. Like on Google, one of the biggest drivers of traffic to our website is our blog. In fact, it is actually our number one driver of traffic is organic search. And we've worked really hard on that. But if you search for certain things, we've got very old content now that we've search optimized that's really driving people to our website. And it's the same now on Instagram. And the reason that is, by the way, is that all of these search platforms want to be the place that you go to look for stuff. Young people now don't use Google. They use TikTok. They use Instagram. I'm going to go on holiday to Italy, or I'm going to go on holiday to Milan. I'm going to search for like nice places to go to Milan on Instagram and TikTok. That's what people do nowadays. And as we get towards Christmas, thinking about this for your own brand, people are going to be searching for what they might want to buy for their friends, and how you can tap into that with your SEO. And hashtags are kind of now a part of that. Would you add anything to that?
Specific hashtags, specific to the post as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And wider ones for your business?
Yeah, so I think, you just got to come back to what would I want people to search for
To find this.
me.
Yeah.
So there are certain hashtags you might put on your posts that are relevant to your business as well. So if somebody was searching for, declutterer, you might want to put a hashtag. There might be declutter fairy. I don't know. There might be some hashtag that's really relevant to your niche that you're going to put in a lot of your posts because you know that that's going to help people find you and help people, help you reach your people. So spending a bit of time looking in hashtags, doing a bit of hashtag research, having a little bank of the ones that you can use for your own posts, but kind of now thinking about them a bit more as part of your SEO strategy, I think is quite useful.
Great, thank you. Anybody else over here? Questions? No? Well, thank you so much. Got one last chance for questions? No? Okay.
Go
thank
on,
you
ask
so much.
anything you want. Can be really silly, honestly. I can see somebody wants to ask a question, but they haven't got the balls. Go on,
Yeah,
ask another one. Yeah, go on, let's have one more.
You've got another one.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I've
Go on,
already
go
asked
on.
the question. But talking about SEO again,
Yes.
so with emails and your strategy of like automating, when someone then signs up to your emails, and then because I'm having a debate with my marketing person, but I don't know much about SEO, but I'm very visual and we have a very visual brand, and I really want to have images, and I don't want it to be salesy and lots of talk, but he's very much like, no, we have to have all writing, and like lots of SEO comes from the
emails?
writing. Yeah.
SEO in your emails?
That's what, yeah, so I've never heard this before, and that's why
I'm really fascinated by this because your
Ah.
emails are going to your email list, and how are they searchable? Unless you're putting your emails online somewhere?
So it's through Shopify, and it's all automated through the, it's like the funnel of, so if they, I don't know, put something in the shopping cart, and then he'll like do a. This is more though like
The
more of your
automations,
EDMs, like
yeah.
the automation. But like once someone signs up, then next week they'll have
Yeah.
a email, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But he's talking
Email
about
flows.
SEO in the.
I'm fascinated by that
email.
because email flow is 100% important, 100% abandon cart, 100% have your welcome flow. Absolutely brilliant, by the way, because you don't have to, once you set it up, they just happen, stuff
Yeah.
happens, you sell stuff without needing to do anything. But I wouldn't say that SEO is the most important thing for your email flows because they're just going to the people that
Good,
you're
because I want
sending
more
them
visuals
to.
in there. So
And I think visuals are good for emails if
Yeah.
you're selling something and you're a visual product, yes.
I would say that what you could do is have a series. So you could have one that goes out once a month that's a very visual one, like a little magazine type thing or something.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can slow things down. You know, it depends how many visuals you've got in there. And,
Yes.
you know, you want to be able to convert them as well. So they might need a bit of text of explaining. So I would just, you might say, not every single email you send out has to be the same format. You can have one that does one thing and then one that's a fortnightly newsletter kind of thing. So you can think about it differently. It doesn't have to be the same thing all the time.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you so much for joining us. Oh, there is one question over here. You're all coming with the questions now. Go on, it's okay.
Hi. What do you think about AI generated? I'm not suggesting wholly AI generated, but say a hybrid version whereby you get your ideas from AI and then you just change them and maybe get your hashtags from AI.
John, I think AI is a really good question. I think AI is really interesting. I don't really know this, but Google AI is coming. It's coming now. It's already kind of there. And I personally would never use ChatGPT to write a caption. I think you can tell. But I think ChatGPT, the search version, is coming soon, which is really interesting. I think it can be a really good research tool. So if you're stuck, sometimes you could use it to generate a list of content ideas. It can really actually helpful to help you kind of refine your content buckets. Absolutely, you can use it to suggest hashtags. I think you have to apply some human intelligence on top of the artificial intelligence. I think people can tell, people can tell when something is written authentically. People can tell when something's from the heart. But I'm not going to discourage you to use it as a search tool or as a research tool. You've kind of come up with a list of blog ideas, a list of content ideas. It can be really, really useful. I think you just need to apply the human bit on top of it.
Instagram tell us that they don't like, well, we believe they don't like us coming off the platform. So
Coming off the platform?
Right. So what's the way that you found the least hurtful to send people to your website?
Yeah, no, good question. So, so if you're thinking about, so obviously you can't put links in captions. You can put links in your bio and you can put links to stories. And it is true with the Instagram story algorithm that the more links you put to leave Instagram, it does drop your stories slightly down the algorithm. But honestly, I wouldn't worry about that. Like you need to send people to your website. I think if you've got a product business, it's really helpful to set up your products in a catalog, which you can do via Facebook. So you can kind of tag them in your posts and that keeping people on Instagram and showing them your products. But I think I wouldn't worry about that too much. You need to send people away. And actually, they stay still within the app. When they close the window, they still come back to Instagram. So I think Instagram prioritize that less than they used to. It used to be like sharing other people's content to stories, sending people off Instagram. Like they did really deprioritize that, but now actually I don't think it matters that much. So people, they want businesses to use their platforms, so I wouldn't worry about that so much. What I would worry more about is how you're packaging that up so people stay on your story and stay engaging with you. But you need to send people off Instagram, so don't stress about that.
And we were talking about this earlier on, but there's a tool called ManyChat, M-A-N-Y chat. And that can work really well just because you're encouraging the DMs and the comments and then you're sending them the link to the website or the newsletter or whatever it may be. And that reduces the friction because it's like just one step that the customer needs to make. So definitely look at how you can use that with your marketing channels as well. Okay, I think we are going to have to leave it there from a time point of view, but thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, you can find over 150 episodes of the Start, Scale, Succeed podcast on wherever you find your podcasts. And me, the buyer and retail coach, I help product businesses start and grow. And Martha, as we've already said, and the Business Secrets Club is amazing. If you don't follow Martha already on that, you're missing out. You need to follow her.
Thank you so much all for coming. It's been lovely to see you all.
Thank you so much.